So I'm here tonight with the very talented Miss Jori Lakars. I think I've said that right.
You did? Yeah.
Awesome. It's a good start. Good start. So how are you, mate? You okay?
Yeah, I'm great, man. Yeah, enjoying lockdown best I can.
Yeah.
Trying to stay busy.
And saying, I know. So listen, you're best known for two things. So firstly, as a singer for a really well-known punk group called The Violators, and now Decades of Delusion. And secondly, as a professional tattoo artist. So that's two pretty extreme, occupations. So that definitely fits with the channel. But let's talk tattooing first, okay?
Yeah, and yeah, definitely.
So tattooing. Okay. So firstly, where are you from originally, and what inspired you to get into tattooing, and where did you sort of serve your apprenticeship and cut your teeth, so to speak?
Yeah. Well, I'm originally from Chicago, Illinois, and I guess I really got into tattoos from going to Blockbuster and getting foreign films. I ran across a Japanese film called Irizumi when I was about, I don't know, 13 or something like that, and it had a lot of the traditional tattooing in it and stuff, and it just caught my imagination from there. I was, always an artistic kid. Math wasn't my strong point, so I knew I was going to, eventually do something artistic. And again, school wasn't really a strong point. So when uni didn't really start to work out, I kind of started looking for apprenticeships, getting tattooed first of all, really. And very early on, I met a guy called Bobby Stocks at a place called Tattoo in Wicker Park in Chicago. And we just kind of clicked. I don't know, something, I mean, I was just a little kid, really. I was 19 or 18 even when I met him. I can't remember exactly, but the years are going by quite quickly. I think I was about 18 when I met him and 19 when I started apprenticing. But from there, I just kind of pestered him until he said, yeah, all right, let's do an apprenticeship. I think it was because at the time, too, there weren't a lot of women tattooing in Chicago. Some, and some very good ones as well. But I think he just kind of liked the idea of maybe doing something a little different. And so I wore him down, and he told the owner, Dr. Dean, used to own Tattoo. And everybody kind of said, okay. And so I started apprenticing, basically. It's an interesting time.
Oh, wow. I think I got into, my two main loves in life are my music and my martial arts. So music-wise, since day dot, I've always been into rock. I started off, my mum and dad were listening to like Queen and Led Zeppelin and Bruce Springsteen, which to this day I am massively into all three of those artists, and Jimi Hendrix as well. Right. So I got into that, and then I sort of progressed on through to like, when I was sort of about 12, 13, all the hair metal scene was happening. Guns N' Roses and Motley Crue and Aerosmith and all the rest of it. We have a story. We'll come back to this in a moment. I'm going to link it. But that was awesome.
The heyday of MTV.
Man, it was. And so there was that side of things, right? And obviously there was a lot of the image was sort of, obviously heavily tattooed and quite like flamboyant. And I loved a lot of the body art that I saw on the bands and things like that. Fascinated me. And plus, it was seen to me at the time as part of that whole sort of hyper real world, of movies and TV and the whole Sunset Strip scene and everything. And then on the other side, my other love is martial arts and has been since like day dot. And again, you were saying about foreign films. Well, again, seeing films where there were like Japanese Yakuza sort of present in a lot of the martial arts films as the baddies. And obviously they have a mega history of tattooing. And then the manga film Crying Freeman, because the guy has an awesome all over body dragon tattoo on that. I just thought, you never seen that?
No, I'll have to check it out.
Oh man, yeah, it's a classic. Crying Freeman, manga classic. Get that looked at. So I mean, I kind of had it fed to me from both sides, and then it just was a natural progression. I got my first when I was like 15. How old were you when you got your first tattoo then?
I was pretty young. It was definitely underage. I won't say where, just in case, But it used to be 21 in Chicago, so I was actually tattooing before I was really legally allowed to be tattooed. So, but it's 18 now, so I think I can get away with saying that now.
I was the only one in secondary school with tattoos, like.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I always had the fake tattoos all over me and everything. I just knew it was something I was going to do. My parents tried to bribe me even with all sorts to get me to finish my degree, and I said, as soon as the apprenticeship came up, because it's not an easy thing to get an apprenticeship, particularly as a 19-year-old young girl, and I really, looking back, I was a kid, so when you get that opportunity, you jump for it. And my dad was, worried I was going to get hopped up on cocaine and be pimped out by these, crazy tattoo guys and all of this. And, it was a stressful time, convincing the parents that this is what was going to happen. But, once they saw I was so passionate about it and, was committed to it, probably more so than I'd been to anything at that point, they finally kind of eased up and just let it happen. And I've been doing it 20 years now. So, I guess I picked right.
I'd say so. So I know you've met some really, really cool people with your tattoo work out in the States. And in particular, just harking back to what I said about part of the scene that influenced me initially and sort of put the ideas of body art and tattoos in my mind was my music that was deeply, and to this day I'm deeply into the whole sort of LA hair metal scene, Guns N' Roses and Poison and Motley Crue and Faster Pussycat and all those guys. And you got to meet Poison, yeah? And the one with them. So tell me, I'm a huge fan of Poison. I'm sorry, sorry, yeah?
Yeah. No, I'd love to say that I tattooed him or something as cool as that. But, again, I kind of grew up in that era. So, Poison, Guns N' Roses, that sort of thing, I loved it as a kid. Looking back, I probably don't listen to that as much now. But, it's always got a bit of nostalgia for me. And Poison in particular, so many people would come through that tattoo shop back in the day. And I always seemed to sort of miss everybody. Like it'd be on my day off and, Michael Jordan gets tattooed or, something ridiculous, It's like, how do I miss this thing? Anyway, this guy came through, he's a friend of the Piercer. And he runs like kind of an open mic night for sort of hair metal guys out in LA. So he knew all these bands, and he was trying to get out to Ohio. His ride disappeared or something, and he was just asking around. He's like, I got to get to Ohio. Can anybody drive me? I'll take you to see Poison. And of course, I perked up. I was like, I'd love to take you. But at the time, I had an old 77 Datsun hatchback, and it needed a thermostat, and it would only go 30 miles an hour. Otherwise, it would overheat and blow smoke everywhere and whatnot. So I was trying to figure out how I was going to drive him to Ohio. Anyway, it wasn't going to work. He found another ride. I was a little heartbroken, and he goes, listen, you obviously, you tried so hard. Do you want to just come with anyway? So I said, absolutely. This was before cell phones and everything. I was married at the time. I think I called my husband from Ohio and like, by the way, I'm in Ohio this weekend watching Poison. I'll see you Monday. But it was great. We walked in, we were, walked right into the sound booth. We were watching, I think it was Faster Pussycat on stage.
Yeah. I saw that a few years ago. Sorry.
I said it might have been Winger on stage. I can't really remember.
Right.
But
I just got to jump in. I actually have a signed Winger album, right? Okay. And me and one of my other good friends, a stuntman called Peter Dillon, we both have like a penchant for like science fiction and fantasy stuff. And we had a geek off. And I think my signed Winger album might have just tipped the scale because they're the guys that again, sorry, not sorry, but even Beavis and Butthead slated them. You know what I mean?
I know.
I love them. 17.
Yeah, I'd never been to like an arena rock show, so it was just sort of this, and even at that point, I wasn't even into that music anymore, but it was just kind of, again, it was that nostalgia of it. And anyway, and I'm standing in the sound booth while this stuff is going on, and then whoever was playing finished, and we got walked across the stage into the back stage area, and people are sitting there having meetings with their lawyers, and Kip Winger walks up. I get to meet him. I got to hang out with I met CeCe DeVille, and all of that. It was a really good time. We got to see 2 nights of shows and stuff, so that was kind of cool because it's nothing that would have happened if I hadn't have been in the tattoo shop that day. It was you always had sort of weird things happening like that, and random adventures.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I gotta say Kip Winger was a super nice guy, man. He was really awesome.
Oh, that's cool. So it's always, it's always good when you meet your like people that you've sort of admired, looked up to, whatever, and they don't disappoint. I've had
Yeah,
many of those. I've had experiences like that. I mean, I'm lucky that I have been really involved with in the martial arts side. I've been and trained with some of the guys that influenced me as a kid.
yeah,
I
that's awesome.
with Benny Akides and Bill Wallace and all the guys that I was watching in the movies, fighting with Jackie Chan growing up and Chuck Norris, and
Oh man,
I've been and trained with those guys and had a train with them a couple of times, a few hours, pick their brains. Even with
yeah,
Bill, had a conversation, got a beer and a burger with him afterwards and had a conversation. We had a great laugh.
that's awesome. Yeah,
Oh man! So I've had that, and then I've had. I got graded for my blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu by Royce Gracie, so the original UFC champion and Hall of
oh
Fame.
wow,
So I've had those experiences. Then I've
yeah,
had on film and TV. I've had a couple of great moments. I got to do a little fight scene with Timothy Dalton, who was James Bond.
very cool. Yeah,
With West Studios, Mogwai, and Last in the Mohican. So again, sort of iconic people from films that affected me, and I got to work with them, and
yeah.
they were all so cool. And it was just great to not have that, to not be let down. That was
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, that's awesome. Because you do hear, never meet your heroes, don't you?
You hear that?
I wouldn't say Poison or Winger was my heroes, but it was just a cool little thing that happened, But, nice that I can share it with somebody who appreciates it.
Stop apologizing for loving hair metal. It's the greatest musical form on earth. End the story.
Hey, I'm a punk rocker and a country girl at heart. So, that's where my loyalties really lie. But.
Listen, Lemmy from Motorhead said it best. There's two types of music. There's music you like, there's music you don't like. End of story. That's my... I've got everything in my collection from Miles Davis to like Slayer and Obituary, hair metal stuff in between. I've got, you name it, it's all.
I'm so sorry. Let me get this dog down.
Sorry, I love the dog. Bring him in. It's cool. That's colour.
Maybe he'll come in a minute.
So that's a cool story. So you nearly ended up tattooing British pop star Craig David as well while you were over there.
Yeah, nearly.
Tell me about that, because that was quite an amusing story.
So at the time, my husband was working at the House of Blues in Chicago. And it was great because we'd always get tickets, we'd get a box seat if we wanted for most shows and things like that. And I didn't even know who Craig David is. I still call him David Craig sometimes. Like I still really don't.
I care less about him. You know what I mean? I'm throwing it in here for a bit of colour, but I mean,
I know there was a guy who did a puppet show with they make fun of him. With Kez, I don't know. Anyway, this was before I was here. This was still in Chicago, so I had no clue. But apparently he wanted to get tattooed, but he wanted it, sort of in his hotel room. He didn't want to have to go to a studio. I think because, he was worried people were going to make a big deal or something.
I don't think you have to worry so much, but go on.
Well, I don't know.
Not the case, I suppose, but go on.
Yeah. So my husband ended up, I don't know if he was talking to him or it got back. He was like, oh, well, Nobby's wife is a tattooist, maybe she'll do it. And somehow he must have gotten my home phone number. And I didn't work till maybe, 10 o'clock in the morning or something like that. I'd go in and open up and stuff like that. But I could hear the phone ring and I heard my roommate talking to somebody, but I was like 8 a.m. and I just thought, I don't care what's happening, and he said, well, she'll call you back, blah, blah, blah. Hung up. About, I get up about an hour later or something like that. He's like, I don't know, somebody named David Craig called you for it. And I said, you mean Craig David, right? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, I'm supposed to tattoo him. I'm like, he's playing at the House of Blues tonight. Like, did you get a number or anything? He's like, no, I just told him to call the tattoo studio. I was like, did you tell him which tattoo studio I worked at? He goes, no. I was like, oh. I could have probably, I don't know what he wanted or, but I thought, well, it's going to be a good paycheck, and I was still
all right. Yeah.
Starting out. So I thought, and maybe this would, open some connections for me as a young, newbie in the business and stuff like that. But didn't happen anyway. My roommate messed that one up a little bit. Oh, and then I think it was the next night. He was on some award show even. It was like, I can't remember what it was. We had friends over and he's like, that's who you hung up on. He's like, oh, I'm really sorry. But it's, You know, I can't say I've done a lot of, you know, celebrity work, but I have done a lot of tattoos. So, you know, what I don't make up for in the, you know, ones that people are really interested in, I make up in longevity in terms of how much skin I've probably covered in my career. So
Cool. So what's your favorite styles of tattooing then? Both personally, what are your strong points as an artist, and also like aesthetically, what do you
yeah.
like?
You know, honestly, I've always worked in street shops, which is, you know, a place where you can kind of walk in. I mean, you used to just pick stuff off the wall, didn't you? You know,
I did when I was
so
15, yeah.
right. You know, it doesn't happen as much these days. Most things are custom, and that's now my studio is a custom studio. So I work by appointment only. But for many, many years, I worked in a street shop, and you know, I'm quite happy doing just about anything. The only thing I don't really kind of mess with is biomech, that sort of thing. There's people out there who do that really well, and I just don't feel like I have to. But you know, I mean, from back in the day, I mean, I'd be happy to do a tribal arm, you know, if I was getting paid to do it. I'm not really that fussy, but I prefer traditional Americana, kind of the old school styles, you know, Sailor Jerry and Ed Hardy and things
Bold
like
lines
that.
and bold colours. I
Yeah.
love that stuff. That's not the stuff that I've got on me. I've got a lot of black and grey work on me, a
Yeah.
few flashes of colour.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, all my tattoos are also like really meaningful to me. Every single one of them, there's a reason and a story behind it, you know?
Yeah.
Every single one of them. I don't know, I've got the martial arts background, I've got Malaysian heritage and things like that. I've got Celtic heritage. So there's stuff on there that reflects all that. And don't get me wrong, I like them just because they're cool as well. They just look badass.
Well,
I mean, the way the place.
I'd say half of my clientele have got reasons for getting them, and half of them just like tattoos. I mean, I'm very much, I just like tattoos, but mine are usually, I've gotten tattooed a lot by the people I've worked with over the years. So that's the meaning behind it. It's not so much what it is as who's done it for me, and just having, you know, that respect for the other artists that I've had the joy of working with and learning from over the years. So, you know, that's where my meanings come from, really.
No, that, to be honest, that's a large part of it for myself. One of my friends, Mark, who I'm hoping to get on for an interview, because as well as being a long time tattooist and having worked in shops all over the world, you know, certainly in Europe. Hey, dog.
Come here, Max.
You know Mark as well. Everyone knows Mark. The dog knows. But I have a.
I needed to say hi. They might shut up if I let them up here for just a half a minute.
No, please. I love my dogs. He did a lot of my tattoos, and obviously being good friends and what have you, and that connection, yeah, that definitely becomes part of the reason, and I love that. When I was 15, I did just walk in and get tattooed off the board and what have you. Don't get me wrong, I have fond memories and nostalgic memories attached to those, and thankfully, with the exception of one cover-up that I got, they were all, you know, they're all still on me now, and you know, I chose well, you know.
I do a lot of cover-ups. I wish I didn't have to. I wish they'd just come to me first. But I do. I'd say still probably half my business is cover-ups.
I wish I'd have met you earlier, because the cover-up I got was not good. I'm not going to talk negatively about people on here, but I'll just say, when I come see you, right, I'll show you.
I'll have a look. I'll see what we can do.
You know what? I'll show you on here, right? Right now, Mark did his very best to sort of rescue it. Mark added some shape and some texture, but the solid black phoenix in the middle, that is raised off my skin like a fucking map. I could have chewed that into my arm. I could have put ink on my teeth and chewed that in my fucking arm, right? But do you know what though? I almost begrudge the idea. People have said, well, you could get. I love the design and I love the shape of the design, just the actual. You know, Mark did what he could to just rescue it and make it look a bit less shit. But I've kind of come to love it, even though it's a terrible piece of work.
It's part of who you are. It's just it's part of your. It's part of who you are. It's part of your story.
There you go. Yeah, and it's got a history with me now. And when people see that, they know there's a story behind that tattoo. They know you didn't get that tattoo because fucking David Beckham had one or something. You know,
I've done a lot of work with people. You know, some who are just. They just wanted something different, you know, and some people who have really been screwed up by some tattooists out there. And, you know, and I've had people in tears, you know, when you're finally done with it and they're just so happy that they feel like they can show off their skin again, you know, just something that some people, it just really affects them if they've got a terrible tattoo, because it is such a permanent and personal thing, or they've had a bad experience regarding it or whatever. So I don't mind. I'm not one of these artists who minds doing cover-ups. You know, I just would love to give them the good tattoo that they deserved in the first place, you know. But cover-ups are puzzles, you know. It's kind of fun and a challenge, you know, to do it. And it's very rare that I'll actually turn one down and say, you know what, that's just, you're gonna have to get some laser on that one. But I have tattoos that, you know, are certainly, you know, not as good as some of the others I've got. And, you know, you just, I pretty much leave them just because it is what it is. It's what I got at the time. It reminds me of a certain place and or people. And, you know, earlier ones really I'm thinking of, you know, before I started working with some really fantastic artists. And then since then I haven't had to worry about that. So.
No, I completely get that and respect that, and it's cool. They have an aesthetic all of their own, I think, actually.
They do, yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, how did you end up in Manchester?
Right. I couldn't even tell you what year it was. I have a terrible memory for dates. I want to say like 2004. They had a punk festival called Holidays in the Sun, and my girlfriend and I came over to go to Morecambe to see this punk festival, and we started off, you know, in Manchester. We went to the Star and Garter for a gig. I think we saw the Dead Pets there or something. Had a great night in Manchester. Got the train from Piccadilly over to Morecambe the next day. And it was absolutely a ram train. We sat down at a table with a couple of the kids that looked punks, you know. So we thought, I bet they're going where we're going. So, you know, and they happened to have some extra seats next to them. So we sat down on the train, started talking and whatnot. Just really clicked, got on really well with them. Kind of spent the whole weekend hanging out with them as well. And we had planned for some extra time at the end of the, you know, after the festival to bop around England and decide, you know, just go wherever we felt like, really. And I said, listen, we're from Buxton. Come to Buxton. You'll love it. It's a really interesting place, you know, and all of this. So we did, and the guy that we were staying with, the woman who owned the house that he lived in, she's again one of my best friends now to this day. But I came to Buxton, and being a Chicago girl and coming to a place like Buxton where you've got this, you know, incredibly old crescent building and natural spring waters and the Pools Cavern and, you know, just these beautiful old, you know, historical buildings. I mean, to an American, it's really old, you know, when you first see it, you're just like kind of floored by it, you know, and I just fell in love with the place. I met a lot of great people. And I obviously, we left at the end of the week. Oh, and shall I also say that it was gorgeous and sunny, like August, beautiful sunny 2 weeks.
In Buxton?
Yes. Beautiful, gorgeous weather, warm, not too cold, you know, gorgeous sun. No, not.
I'll tell you what, mate, you've hit that. That was lucky, because Buxton,
well,
you can usually tell it's summer when you're just wearing one coat. You know what I mean? That is like one of the highest points in Britain. It's an ecosystem all of its own, and it is fucking freezing. You know, it's like, oh man, I love the place. It's gorgeous.
I ended up living there 10 years, so it's, you know, I mean, I laughed because I think after I came back, because I decided I had some time off. My, you know, relationship with the tattoo shop I was at kind of fell apart. People were leaving that I didn't want to not work with, and anyway, it was just kind of a transition period. And so I, you know, as an American, you had 3 months on a visa. I got a little bit of money from my grandmother. She wanted me to travel. So I said, well, I'll go to England for 3 months, and came out and, you know, decided to stay in Buxton again and everything. And, you know, it was January, I think it was, and it was miserable, and, you know, the wind's blowing sideways. It's probably windier than Chicago, really.
That's the Buxton I know, mate. Definitely.
Yeah. And everybody, when I got back, you know, everybody's like, oh, you know, so it does rain all the time. I was like, every bloody day. But funny enough, I was sat in a pub in Buxton, and I must have just had my sleeves rolled up, and this woman comes over. She says, oh, I really like your tattoos, blah, blah, blah. And she was a photographer at the time, and she was running a tattoo kind of website, like a phone book of all the tattooists kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we got chatting, and she said, "Oh, and the convention's on this weekend. Do you want to meet up? And I can introduce you to some people up in Manchester." So we met up. We went to Manchester. She took me to a studio called Studio 81. Because I was at the time I was looking for guest work basically, and they said, "Yeah, we've got 3 artists out because they're going to be working the convention. So if you want to come in and work here for the weekend, we'd love the help." So I did. It was rammed, did great, got on with everybody, really enjoyed it. And they said, "Do you want a job?" And I said, "Well, yeah, obviously, but how is that going to work, being an American?" And at the time, I had been seeing somebody over here as well. So we kind of talked and decided, we were going to go ahead and, bite the bullet, get married, do the whole, thing. Because ideally, I would have liked to have just gotten a sponsorship, but they don't do that with artists, really. You can't just, unless you're a massive corporation, they're not just going to, give you a visa. So came back, got married, did all that whole thing and everything, and lasted about 5 years. And then one of the owners of that studio opened a place in Affleck's Palace. So they put me over there, and I managed the tattoo bit of the studio for about 10 years.
I love Affleck. I spent half my youth there, man.
Yeah. I mean, I was in the back of a t-shirt shop. The room was tinier than my bathtub. It was ridiculous. But at the time, because tattoos were just becoming so popular at that sort of moment, Manchester was a big up and coming scene for it as well. And it was so easy to just say Affleck's Palace. Everybody knew where it was, there's parking around there kind of thing. It was just great. So yeah, I stayed there for 10 years. And then, from there, I've now just about 6 years ago, I opened my own studio in Stockport. So that's where I'm at now. It's called.
Well, tell us about your studio now. So you're in Stockport, and it's QP Tattoos. Is that correct?
QP Tattoo Studio. Yeah, it's just off the A6, kind of just before the town center. Nice little area, like kind of almost near Davenport. But it's like I said, custom studio. I love it. The thing when you're working for somebody else, you're always giving them your money. And now I'm working for myself. I'm giving other people my money because I'm paying all the bills and everything on my own. But it was just me for about the first 3 years. So it was, I think after working in street shops for about 15 odd years, I kind of wanted to just have it on, my own and all that. And then now I had a guy come from Australia. He worked with me for, a month or two. And now I have an apprentice, and he's up and coming, and a new guy who's just started recently. So we're starting to grow it a little bit. I can be around other people again, which is nice. But it's great. I do, all my consultations are pretty much, usually over email and stuff. And I do all my drawing on an iPad now. It's kind of, so I only really need to sort of be there when I have work, which I'm very anxious to get back to after all of this COVID stuff. But but yeah, it's great. It's a lovely spot. It feels like I wanted it to feel like people. I didn't want it to be a home tattooist, but I want it to feel like you're coming into my home. So it's got these white pillars out front. We're just about to go up tomorrow to decorate them, so it'll have QP tattoos down the pillars, and it's just kind of, I like it's almost like I'm trying to turn it into a bit of an art gallery as well.
Awesome.
Friends who are artists, give me paintings, or I buy paintings when I can afford them. And, I have all that on display, and I have all my weird little knickknacks on collection. Plenty to look at when you're in and then my room, because everybody's got a private room as well. My room's just all of the designs that I've done since I've been there are all over the wall. So that's kind of my wallpaper, which is kind of nice. I'm starting to run out of room, so I don't know what I'm going to do when that happens, but I'm sure I'll figure something out.
That's great, Jori. And that's a cool place to sort of lead the tattooing. So I'm going to go over onto the other subject. You're also known as a punk rock singer, and initially with a really well-known band called the Violators. And coincidentally, I think I mentioned this to you, one of your tracks, because I obviously do the martial arts and the fight choreography, film and TV. One of the Violators tracks came across my desk a couple of years ago, potentially, doing a video for you. And we loved the track. We were like, yeah, we'll do this. And then it never materialized. But then, just swings and roundabouts. Here I am chatting to you today. So first with the Violators, and now you are with Decades of Delusion that also features several other members of the Violators. And
the reformed Violators.
Violators, not the original lineup. So, the original Violators were like around early 80s, sort of similar time as our mutual friend Mackie and Blitz and all that. And then broke up and got back together.
A little microcosm in the high peak of great punk bands that kind of came out of that time, which was, a weird thing, to think of. But, Buxton and New Mills and places like that. But, Chapel and whatnot. But,
it's a weird one, though. I'll tell you something. Having grown up round here in a very different time, pre-internet and everything else like that, it's a bit of a weird one when you're in a small town. I don't imagine it's dissimilar in the States, apart from our small towns are really fucking small. And it's like we had internet before we had internet, you know what I mean? Everyone knows everything. And and it's like fame in the macrocosm, because people will never let the truth get in the way of a good story. Believe me, I've heard spectacular stuff about myself over the years. And I'm like, really? What happened next? Go tell me.
Surprisingly, Chicago's like that, and it's a massive city. But I always say Chicago is the biggest small town there ever was, because you could turn around and somebody knows what you've done 2 days from now, and you're like, I don't even know what I'm doing tomorrow. How do you know? I'm saying, I kind of get it, but from a bigger scale, obviously.
And it's beautiful around here, which is why I'm still here today, and I'm in it now, not of it. But I'll tell you something. There is a horribly negative side to all of that as well. And there really gets that, you get that claustrophobic feel, you get the issues. And this was pre-internet, but everyone will stick a label on you. If you deviate from that label, even a tiny bit, they will jump all over you. There was a lot of jealousy, because there were also just a lot of very sort of downtrodden, small-minded people in a very close space, right? There are also a lot of the coolest people on earth that I've ever met locally. I've always had a love-hate sort of relationship with the place.
These days, because I'm a little older, it seems like, I have run across some of these small-minded people, around Buxton and some of the surrounding areas. But like you said, there's some just absolutely amazing. For some reason, I just know a ton of talented people from around here, and but I think because I'm older, I can kind of just ignore any of the chatty stuff. I'm sure people say stuff about me, the crazy American with snakes on her neck. I sort of stick out a little bit around these parts. But, I just don't even listen to any of that.
Do you know what does it? Do you know what gives me away? It's the opposable digit. It sets me aside. So I got some grief for that. It's 5 told me, for me, No webbing between the hands. How'd you swim, lad? How'd you swim? Now, I tell you. No, it is what it is. But what I'm saying is, I'm not going to joke about this. For a long time, New Mills, as small as it is, it's like 10,000 people, had one of, if not the highest suicide rates per head in the whole country.
Wow.
So one of the highest problems with heroin. With smack.
Really?
Yeah.
I know Buxton's got a lot of trouble with that too. Still, it's really sad.
It's still there. There's this. It's a bit like waking up every day, trapped in a David Lynch movie on MCAT. It can get a bit on top pretty quick. It's if you don't have, it's cool, but it works for me now because I'm extremely centered in myself. Okay, but growing up with a lot of things going on, that is not an easy environment to find your feet in. And it brings a lot of stuff up, and there is a lot of scrutiny. And like I said, it is like fame in the macrocosm.
And you need to find an outlet for all of that too, which is
where I'm coming to.
Where the music comes out.
And the fighting. There's a hell of a lot of talented sort of martial arts and boxers and some great talent from that area on the fighting side, on the music side. Me and Mackie have a mutual love of martial arts. We ended up talking about that. And there are so many parallels between martial arts and music. But essentially, it's taking, especially our type of music, like aggressive stuff, it's like a bit of a catharsis for me. Whether I'm smashing the bag, or whether I'm playing my guitar, or whether I'm just listening to, Slayer or whatever I'm on, something heavy and aggressive, sick of it all, whatever, I'm getting that out of me in a positive way. And the thing I would say about that type of music and also the martial arts, you're taking like the worst aspects of existence, and that's your material that you're building from, and you're turning that into something creative, positive, you know,
Yeah.
and a complete
Well, you hope.
well, you know, you try, you know,
You try.
tonic for that shite side of life. But that's why I'm saying it can be a real pressure cooker, and that is why I think, you know, straight up, you've got so much musical talent and so much like martial talent in a very small, concentrated area, and it's fascinating. And don't get me wrong, like I said, nowadays I love being here, you know, because it's in the sticks. I'm like, if I could get further away, I would. If I could get a house in the middle of the field with no one around, that's me, you know.
Well, I live in Sparrow Pit now, which is about 20 houses. I'm about as far away as I could be from anybody and still be able to get to work, you know.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Feeling.
But so we've digressed. Well, I'm glad we have. That was an interesting little aside. But coming back, so you were with the Violators for a while. So tell me a little bit about A, how that transpired, and B, some of your sort of highlights of playing with that band, please.
Yeah. So how did that transpire? I went to see The Damned at the Buxton Opera House one night. I think I went on my own, but I ended up running into a few people I knew there. And one of the guys was playing guitar with the Violators. Now, they weren't doing anything that, you know, they'd just been sort of jamming in, you know, the bass player's living room for a couple of years, basically. They wanted to start just kind of recording, I guess, but just, you know, living room recording stuff, whatever. And I don't know, they met me, they liked the look of me, the bass player anyway, and said, can you sing? I said, I don't know, you know, sure. Like, he said, well, listen, come by, you know, he's like, I just want to put some ooze down, you know, in summer of 81. And we just want to hear how, you know, the new arrangement works. I said, yeah, all right, you know. Came around, put some ooze down. They liked it, you know, and they said, listen, we're, you know, practicing on Thursday if you want to come and, you know, try out some of the other tracks and whatnot. And I mean, I can't say like I really knew of the I'd heard, you know, like Summer of 81, but I didn't know them, you know, it wasn't really my thing in Chicago. But I just thought, well, it's something to do, isn't it? You know, it's nice to, you know, be asked and to, you know, get involved with some music and stuff. I mean, I've never considered myself very much of a musician or a singer or anything. I've been in bands probably as long as I can remember somehow, but, you know, it's never been like a super passion, you know, until recently. But it's, you know, I just kept coming back basically. And, you know, knowing that there was only one original member of the band at the time. So, you know, and the goal wasn't really playing shows or doing anything. I always thought we should, you know, I mean, if you've got all these great songs and you can play them live, why not? But obviously they had a female singer, Helen, and she was great, did a great job. And it was kind of difficult coming in, not only as I think as American, but, you know, not really kind of from that time and all of this. And when people know a band and they hear your voice where it should be somebody else's, it gets a little stressful, you know? So, you know, and we didn't have a drummer either. So there wasn't a lot of pressure. It was like, well, I can just, you know, come in, sing these songs, have fun with it. And it is what it is. And then, you know, we were starting to sound pretty good. And I said, listen, we got to get a drummer, you know. We all kind of got together and agreed, and we started looking. We found who eventually became a drummer, Greg Bolton, fantastic punk drummer. He's been playing in punk bands since he was in the womb, I think. I don't know, you know. No, yeah, and he's just a real go-getter. He knows a lot of people. Fantastic, you know, and just slotted right in. That's when things kind of started kicking off, you know, and really taking shape. And I think maybe we were practicing only about, I don't know, 6-8 months or something like that when we started saying, listen, we got to start doing some shows. And, you know, so we did. But, you know, unfortunately, as these things go with, you know, adults who have other things going on, families and jobs and whatnot, it was just hard to kind of commit to a lot of the gigs that we were getting. You know, when you've got a name like the Violators, people are dying. They haven't been around in 40 years or whatever it's been. People are dying to hear that band, and they want to see what they've been listening to for the last 40 years. And I think, for some people they were excited about us, and some people, really just wanted the old Violators, which I understand as well. But we had some great gigs, maybe 5 or 6, I think we only really did in total. I think we did the Morecambe Punk Festival. One of my favorites, though, had to be 100 Club down in London. That was just real.
Iconic place, isn't it? So,
Oh, it was great, and when the promoter, came to pay us, he brought me in the back. He's like, come into my office. And it's this little bathroom in the back. And he's like, listen, I talked to Susie Sue in here and all of this, and now you're part of all this. And I was like, that's so, it was a brilliant, brilliant gig. The audience was great. The club, the people who run it and everything were great, just really enjoyed it. And then from there, I think the next big one we did, and my last gig was, it was called Unpleasant Girls. It's a kind of punk collective in France, and they had an all-day female-fronted punk festival. So they invited us over, flew us over, put us up. It was, really something. And we headlined that, and that was just mental. Everybody just was going crazy. People on stage and, knocking over mic stands and bowling us over. And it was a really great time, and it was nice to kind of, because by that point, I think creatively and just with what we wanted to do with the music and where we wanted to take it, some people just weren't seeing eye to eye on things. So I made the decision to leave after that. I kind of stuck around just long enough for the French gig, because the France gig, because, I wanted to go out on a high. I wanted to do something like that and say we've done it, and I've done the best I could with that band. And then from there, Greg and I and Mike, who was playing guitar for us, because again, it was only sort of one member of the Violators, really. We decided, we really kind of clicked, and we knew we had songs we wanted to sing, we had songs we wanted to write, we had things we wanted to say, and gigs to play, and we were very much more like kind of, let's get out there and have this music for everybody to share. So after I left, Greg joined me, Mike came on, and then we've got Adam and our bass player Dunk now, and that became Decades of Delusion, which again, we've only been going sort of just over I'd like to say a year. It hasn't quite been a year because we've been on lockdown, so that's put a real damper on things, just as we were starting to kind of get a little momentum behind it. But we've got a new EP out, which has 4 tracks, and that's on all the platforms, if I might just do a little plug here.
Please do, I really, really enjoyed that. I'm not just saying that because I'm speaking.
Yeah, thanks.
Especially the title track, Get Me a Plug.
Yeah.
Badass.
Yeah.
So go and listen to it, because trust me, it's cool. It's cool.
Yeah, Get Me a Pulpit, and it's got Preacher, Death or Glory, Hate Song, and Slave on there. I think Slave's my favorite, actually, just because I like screaming. I like being loud, and, I think it's the American in me. But I do think that, a lot of the songs were trying to really say something, and not most punk bands do, I think, but we're just, there's a lot to be angry about in the world these days, and I want to make sure that comes across in my voice and in our music. And I have such a great support group with those guys. They're just the best bandmates you could ask for, really. Everybody kind of contributes, and I might throw a lyric here, and Mike throws a lyric in, and Greg's always got the drums going on. So, Adam does some great solos, Dunk's a great rhythm, bass player and stuff like that. And, it's just like hanging out with your mates, really, but, with gigs thrown in. So that's nice,
Always.
It's been a lot of fun.
Well, listen, if you ever need a music video, hit me and my team up. We'll be happy.
Yeah, well, I was upset that we didn't end up doing that with the Violators, because I really liked the sound of that. But it was just tough to kind of get anything going with that band, and I wish them all the best, but I would like to get some music videos going on and stuff like that. I think as soon as we can get our feet on the ground again, we're going to be back practicing. We want to get back in the recording studio, and finish the rest of the songs we've got already. We're writing songs. We've got, 6 or 8 that are just kind of on the back burner already. We were really just kind of hitting our stride, and this pandemic is really, screwed over a lot of people, unfortunately. But obviously, if we're not healthy and we're not safe, then, we're not going to be playing music together. So I do hope that going forward, I mean, I'm very concerned about how shows are going to happen, and just even being able to practice in the same room and stuff like that. So fingers crossed things go well. We don't have to wear spacesuits to gigs and things like that.
I mean, it's insane times, unprecedented times. No one's got a clue, and everyone's just taking it one day at a time. And that's all you can do. Stay in the at a time and go with it.
But for right now, I think as soon as we can, we're going to try to at least get back in the studio, get the rest of the songs recorded, get a full length out. And from there, we're due to play the Morecambe Punk Festival this year. Cool. If it goes ahead, I'm hoping and praying it does. And we'll just see, we're trying to get the tracks out to a bunch of, radio stations, things like that, see who picks it up, and hopefully, talk to a lot of these promoters. Obviously Rebellion is on the wish list. I'll just put that out there if you're listening, guys, because that's, you got to play Rebellion, don't you? So I'd like to do that. And hopefully there's a great punk festival up in Dunoon, that was another one with the Violators. That was a great gig. That was kind of our first big gig as well. This guy Ian puts it on, and it's fantastic. There's sometimes a cruise. It depends on how things go, but there's always something interesting. It's such a beautiful area to have a punk festival in. It's a real kind of ground roots festival.
Cool.
It's getting bigger and bigger by the year, so eventually we'd like to make it back up there with Decades and be able to play that too. So there's a few on the wish list, and I appreciate, we're a very new band, right? So there's going to be some we don't have a big name carrying us anymore, so there's going to be some groundwork to do, which is great, and we're all up for it, and just want to get out there and sing the songs for everybody, and get out some of our own aggressions.
Yeah, I hear that, definitely. Well, Jori, that's great. And my last question you've just answered, I was just asking about the future, and that's detailed it really, really well. So it's been amazing chatting with you. So don't rush off straight away. I'll have a quick catch up with you afterwards and a quick debrief on the interview. But
sounds good.
I'll just say this now. So, Jori, thank you very, very much for your time, and I've really enjoyed it. And we will speak again soon, I'm very, very sure. But
thanks for having me.
Cheers. Take care.
See ya.
Bye.